Moving on, Battle of Fort Stevens, July 11th through the 12th, 1864, Washington, D.C., which is present-day Northwest Washington, D.C.
Right.
During the Valley Campaigns of 1864.
That's the very next battle.
Right, between forces of Early and McCook from the Union side. After the Battle of Monocacy, Early resumed his march on District of Columbia and arrived at northeast border near Silver Spring around noon on 11th of July. Because of the battle and then long march, yes, we know he didn't go until the next day.
Until the next day, right.
Early's invasion of Maryland had the desired effect on Grant, who dispatched the rest of the 6th Corps and the 19th Corps under Major General Horatio Wright. He said, go to Washington. He did that on the 9th of July. As Lee wrote to James Seddon, the Confederate Secretary of War, on July 19th, he says this: it was believed that the Valley could then be effectively freed from the presence of an enemy, and it was hoped that the threatening Washington and Baltimore, General Grant would be compelled to weaken himself so much for their protection as to afford the opportunity to attack him, or that he might be induced to attack us.
Oh, look at that. The steamships carrying the Union force started to arrive in southeast Washington around noon July 11th, about the same time that Early reached the outskirts of Fort Stevens with the lead elements of his troops. Washington, D.C. prepared for the Confederate victory. Prepared for the Confederate assault amid one of the worst hot spells in its history. It lasted 47 days without rain, with temperatures exceeding 90 degrees. The U.S. Congress and prominent residents left town to escape the heat as much as the impending Confederate advance. However, Lincoln remained near the city, staying with his family at the Soldiers' Home in present-day Northwest Washington. Look at that.
All right.
Although a steamer waited on the Potomac to evacuate them if the situation became dire. But we got it ready. We got it steaming for you, President.
Damn right we do. Meanwhile, refugees surrounding counties.
The old cunties.
Meanwhile, refugees from surrounding counties began to enter the relative safety of the city. Overall command for defense of the district was given to Major General Christopher Augur as commander of the 22nd Corps. Major Generals Quincy Gilmore and Alexander McCook commanded the northeast sector and the reserve post at Blagden Farm, respectively. Augur, he commanded 31,000 troops, 1,000 artillery pieces, and 160 fortifications, batteries, and trenches. Damn, that's nice. 87 fortifications were north of Potomac, facing Early's approach, with 484 heavy guns, 13,986 men. Land was cleared surrounding the city to create open fields of fire. 6 companies of the 8th Illinois Cavalry were stationed in front of the northern defenses.
So they got the city pretty well fortified there. Right. Despite the impressive array, Washington's defenses were unformidable. General John C. Barnard, Grant's engineer and officer, noted that many of the troops were not actually fit for duty because they were new recruits, untried reserves, recovering from wounds, or worn-out veterans. Who gives a shit?
Right.
Bernard estimated that instead of 31,000, the actual number of usable troops was around 9,600.
Wow.
The capital was more vulnerable to Confederate attack than it seemed, since with around 10,000 troops, the Confederate Army matched the effective Union troop strength.
Right. Oh, wow.
All right.
The arrival of the 6th Corps, about 10,000 men, brought desperately needed veteran reinforcements.
See, there you go.
It also added another high-ranking officer into a jumbled Union command.
Man, that's not what you don't want.
The Washington defenses played a host to a number of generals ejected from major theaters of the war.
They're all mean. They're maybe, I wish I could do something.
Or incapacitated for field command by wounds or disease. Major General Alexander McCook, who had been relieved of command after the 1863 Battle of Chickamauga, was placed in command of defenses of the Potomac River and Washington, superseding Christopher Columbus Augur, who commanded the Department of Washington.
All right. Augur also commanded the 22nd Corps, whose troops manned the capital's defensive works. Major General Henry Halleck called upon Major General Quincy Gilmore in New York City to take command of a detachment from the 19th Corps. Union Army's Quartermaster General Brigadier General Montgomery Meigs took command of an emergency division composed of federal employees who were armed during the raid directly under the command of McCook. Even Lincoln personally arrived at the battlefield.
Wow.
McCook tried to sort out the problem of too many high-ranking generals in the face of Early's advance. He's like, dude, we got too many people here.
Right.
They're strutting their little peacock feathers around.
Well, he was unable to rid himself of the generals and their attempts to gain leverage over one another. But somewhat workable command structure was established. With McCook in overall command, Gilmore commanded the northeast line of the fortress, which was Fort Lincoln to Fort Totten. Meigs commanded the northern line of the forts, which was Fort Totten to Fort DeRussy, including Fort Stevens. Oh, look at you. You get the battle point, guy.
Right.
And Augur's 1st Division commander, Martin D. Hardin, he commanded the northwest lines of Fort DeRussy and to Fort Sumner.
All right. Well, Wright and the 6th Corps were initially to be held in reserve, but McCook immediately decided against it and stated that he felt veteran troops needed to take the front lines against Early's troops. I would say, as it was, Hardin's troops engaged in some light skirmishing, but McCook As McCook intended, it was to be Wright's veterans who bore the brunt of the fighting.
About the time Wright's command was arriving in Washington, Early's corps began to arrive at the breastworks of Fort Stevens. Yet Early delayed the attack because he was so unsure of the Federal strength defending the fort. Much of his armies was still in a transit to the front as well, and the troops he had were exhausted due to the excessive heat and the very fact that they had been on the march since June 13th.
All right.
Additionally, many of the Confederate troops had looted the home of Montgomery Blair, the son of the founder of Silver Spring, Maryland. They found barrels of whiskey in the basement of the mansion, called Blair Mansion, and many troops were too drunk to get to get a start in the morning. This allowed for the further fortification by Union troops.
These motherfuckers all hungover, sleeping in and shit. What a bunch of...
Probably even more drunk since they're all like dehydrated and shit. Oh, wow.
Sad. Around 3 p.m., with the bulk of their force present, the Confederates commenced skirmishing, probing the defense maintained by Brigadier General Martin Hardin's division of the 22nd Corps, with a line of skirmishers backed by artillery. Near the start of the Confederate attack, the lead elements of the 6th and 19th Corps arrived at the fort, reinforcing it with battle-hardened troops. The battle picked up around 5 p.m. when Confederate cavalry pushed through the advanced Union picket line. The Union counterattack drove back the Confederate cavalry, and the two opposing lines confronted each other throughout the evening with periods of intense skirmishing.
Oh. Wow. The Union front was aided by artillery from the fort, which shelled rebel positions, destroying many houses that the rebel sharpshooters used for protection. President Lincoln, his wife Mary, and some officers rode out to observe the attack, either on the 11th or the 12th of July, and they were briefly under enemy fire that wounded a Union surgeon standing next to Lincoln on the Fort Stevens parapet. Whoa.
Oh, wow.
Lincoln was brusquely ordered to take cover by an officer, possibly Horatio Wright. Although other stories claim that it was Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. Who cares? Somebody told him to. Or Private John A. Beatty of the 150th Ohio Infantry, the fort commander, or other privates of the Ohio National. How about everybody who's just like, dude.
President, you gotta go, dude.
Or some bitch named Elizabeth Thomas.
Right, you gotta get out of here, dude.
You gotta fucking go.
You gotta go. You gotta go. He's like, I'm on it. We know, Lincoln, we know. Additional Union reinforcements from the 6th and 19th Corps arrived overnight and were placed to reserve behind the line. Skirmishing continued into July 12th, when Early finally decided that Washington could not be taken without heavy losses, which would be too severe to warrant the attempt. Union artillery from Fort Stevens attempted to clear out Confederate sharpshooters hidden in the buildings and forts in front of the fort. When the artillery fire failed to drive them off, the 6th Corps Brigade of Daniel Bidwell, supported by Oliver Edwards' brigade and 2 Veteran Reserve Corps regiments, attacked them at about 5 p.m. Said, "You're getting out of our houses, snipers."
You ain't get
Snippers.
The attack was very successful, but the costs over 300 men.
I mean,
Early's force withdrew that very evening, heading back into Montgomery County, Maryland, and crossed the Potomac on the 13th of July at White's Ferry into Leesburg, Virginia. The old Rebs successfully brought the supplies they seized during the previous weeks with them into Virginia. Oh, that's
plus
nice.
200 grand.
Early remarked to one of his officers after the battle, "Major, we didn't take Washington, but we scared old Abe Lincoln like hell." Wright organized a pursuit force and set out after them during the afternoon of the 13th.
Right. Fort
July.
Stevens is now maintained by the National Park Service under the administration of the Civil War Defenses of Washington. It's located near the 13th Street Northwest between Rittenhouse and Quackenbaugh Streets, and is the only part of the battlefield currently preserved. The remainder was developed following 1925. Of course it was. The Battleground National Cemetery was established 2 weeks after the battle and is located nearby at 6625 Georgia Avenue Northwest, containing the graves of 40 Union soldiers killed in this battle. 17 Confederate soldiers are buried on the grounds of Grace Episcopal Church, slightly north of current downtown Silver Spring, Maryland, at the intersection of Georgia Avenue and Grace Church Road. Okay, the Reverend James Abbey Averett, the pastor at Grace Church, was instrumental in interring the Confederate soldiers at Grace Episcopal Church. Good for you, Reverend James.
Right. Fantastic. Yeah, the Union got lucky here. Yeah, lucky.
Did they get lucky, or there was no way that Early was taking the... There's no way.
Right.
All those forts and shit?
Right, yeah, it wasn't happening.
Unless you threw 150,000 at it.
Maybe.
It wasn't happening. But he was right. Scared him like hell.
Dude.